Ukraine is under fire, Trump on one end and Putin on another. Is Zelensky fighting a war on two fronts? As Russian missiles rain down and Trump accuses Ukraine of blocking peace, global alliances are fraying. Zelensky may be the scapegoat. This and many more will be detailed in today's Flash News. Good afternoon and welcome. I am Star Smart. Let's begin. Well, in a dramatic escalation, Russia launched a massive aerial attack on Kyiv early today, just hours after the United States President Donald Trump publicly accused Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky of undermining peace negotiations with Moscow. Ukraine's Air Force reported that Russia has fired 70 missiles and 145 drones, mainly targeting the capital. At least 9 people were confirmed dead and over 70 others injured, with emergency teams still searching for survivors beneath the rubble. Zelensky, who was on an official trip to South Africa, immediately cut short his visit and returned to Ukraine following the strikes. It is extremely important that everyone around the world sees and understands what is really happening, says Zelensky. Renewed Ukraine's urgent plea to Western allies to stronger air defense systems, calling the strikes unconditional acts of terror. But as tensions rise, both in the skies and in global diplomacy, one question looms large. Is the friction between Washington and Kyiv weakening the international resolve needed to deter Moscow? Well, air raid sirens wailed for nearly 6 hours as explosions rocked Kyiv in the early hours. Ukrainian emergency services reported strikes at 13 locations, including civilian buildings and infrastructure. Photos showed multiple fires across residential blocks and in one neighborhood. Sabotaging engineers and rescue dogs combed through debris where children were reportedly missing. Interior Minister Ihor Klimenko said he called the situation tragic, noting that at least 2 children remain unaccounted for. Now, the mayor of Kyiv, Vitaly Klitschko, had earlier urged residents to seek shelter before the city's military administration later issued an all-clear signal. 42 people were hospitalized, including 6 children. And outside of Kyiv, Russian attacks also targeted 8 other regions: Zhytomyr, Dnipro, Kharkiv, Poltava, and Melski, as well as Sumy and Zaporizhzhia. Now, 5 ballistic missiles penetrated Ukraine's defenses, and according to Ukrainian officials, the Air Force described the barrage as one of the most coordinated and large-scale attacks in recent months. The violence followed a renewed diplomatic rift between Trump and Zelensky, centered on the fate of Crimea, a Ukrainian territory annexed by Russia in 2014. Now, in a report on his Truth Social platform, Trump criticized Zelensky's firm stance on reclaiming Crimea, calling it very harmful to the peace negotiations with Russia. He accused the Ukrainian leader of inflaming tensions, saying he has nothing to boast about. According to insiders, the Trump administration has floated a proposal to recognize Russian control over Crimea in exchange for a broader ceasefire. Now, such a move would represent a dramatic reversal of a decade-long United States policy and could challenge international norms established since World War II. Zelensky, however, remained defiant, insisting that any territorial concessions would violate Ukraine's constitution. And Vice President J.D. Vance reinforced Trump's tough line, warning that the United States may walk away from talks unless Ukraine and Russia agree to a very explicit peace proposal. Meanwhile, the United States Secretary of State Marco Rubio abruptly withdrew from upcoming multilateral talks in Europe, which were subsequently downgraded to lower-level discussions. Well, let's take a look at this video of Vice President J.D. Vance.
We've issued a very explicit proposal to both the Russians and the Ukrainians, and it's time for them to either say yes or for the United States to walk away from this process. We've engaged in an extraordinary amount of diplomacy, of on-the-ground work. We've really tried to understand things from the perspective of both the Ukrainians and the Russians. What do Ukrainians care the most about? What do the Russians care the most about? And I think that we've put together a very fair proposal. We're going to see if the Europeans, the Russians, and the Ukrainians are ultimately able to get this thing over the finish line. Again, I feel pretty optimistic about it. I think everybody has been negotiating in good faith, but it's now time, I think, to take, if not the final step, one of the final steps, which is at a broad level, the party saying, we're going to stop the killing, we're going to freeze the territorial lines at some level close to where they are today, and we're going to actually put in place the kind of long-term diplomatic settlement that hopefully will lead to long-term peace.
Oh well, Zelensky responded to the diplomatic unraveling by acknowledging the emotional toll, saying emotions have run high today. Now, he posted on X hinting at growing frustrations with the United States position. But the deeper strategic question remains, could the Trump administration's willingness to compromise on Crimea set a dangerous precedent for global territorial disputes, or is it a necessary step to end a prolonged war? Well, as Ukrainian citizens smolder and diplomatic channels grow strained, the Trump administration appears to be testing a high-stakes gamble. On Friday, Trump's Middle East envoy Steve Witkoff is scheduled to visit Moscow for direct talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin, a bold move that signals Trump's preference for bilateral high-level negotiations over multilateral consensus building. The optics of an American envoy heading to Moscow while Ukraine mourns its dead are likely to stir controversy across both sides of the political aisle. Critics have warned that such actions could embolden Moscow, and supporters also argue it shows pragmatic leadership aimed at ending this war that has been prolonged. Now, still, one crucial and critical question cuts across party lines and geopolitical loyalties. Is this new United States approach a pathway to peace, or is it a signal that Ukraine may soon be left to fight alone? Well, while we wait to get the answer to that with the recent unfoldings, we'll take a look at Elon Musk and his governmental role. We see that Elon Musk is sending mixed signals about his role in government, and it's sparking legal, political, and economic questions that go far beyond his job title. On Tuesday's Tesla earnings call, Musk announced that starting in May, he would significantly reduce his time spent on DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, a task force under Trump's administration targeting federal waste. Now, Wall Street applauded. Tesla stock, which had suffered from Musk's polarizing political profile, saw a rebound. But within minutes, Musk contradicted himself, saying he expects to continue advising the White House 1 or 2 days a week until at least the end of Trump's term in 2029. Now, if Musk isn't fully leaving, then what exactly is his legal status, and who is really watching the watchdog? The ambiguity around Musk's involvement in the United States politics is more than just bureaucratic confusion. It touches on constitutional ethics and the limits of executive power. Now, while the White House refers to Musk as a special government employee, an SGE, experts argue this designation being misused. Under federal law, SGEs are meant to bring outside expertise to the government occasionally, not to lead sweeping reforms, fire workers, or rewrite how agencies operate. Mark Steyer, CEO of the Partnership for Public Service, calls Musk's role a clear abuse of the system and warns of serious conflicts of interest. He says there is no way Elon Musk should be making high-level decisions on agencies tied to his private business ventures. Steyer told this to CNN. Now, it is not just a loophole, it is a systemic failure in ethics oversight, was what he concluded with. But we know Dodd's claim cost savings, reportedly as high as $1 trillion, are impossible to verify, while Musk touts efficiency wins. Critics argue that his efforts have led to massive disruptions, including the firing of IRS staff during tax season, now which some could say cost the government hundreds of billions in lost revenue. Now, are Musk cuts saving the system, or are Musk cuts sabotaging it from within? Well, that is a question we're yet to get an answer to. But legally, we see that SGEs are only allowed to work 130 days per year. Musk's government position was announced in early February, and if his start date was January 20th, Inauguration Day, his time is already running out. Yet Musk hasn't announced a departure, only a scaled back role. According to Steer, this could suggest the White House plans to quietly skirt legal limits to keep Musk in the room regardless of the calendar. Now, the White House declined CNN's request for clarity on whether Musk's continued involvement would breach the 130-day rule. Now, this isn't the first time ethics rules have been sidestepped under the current administration. We know that Trump previously fired the head of the Office of Government Ethics and replaced him with Jameson Greer, who now judges and juggles oversight duties while also serving as the United States Trade Representative. Now, the emoluments clause adds another layer of concern. While the SGEs like Musk are technically not full-time employees, they are still prohibited from accepting money from foreign governments. Musk's business empire, including SpaceX, Tesla, X, which is formerly Twitter, and Neuralink, has deep global ties. His financial disclosure form has not been made public, but CNN and other outlets have documented potential overlaps between his private ventures and federal decisions, with so much overlap between Musk's empire and federal policy. Now, we wonder with this situation, is this a case of public service or personal empire building? Well, Trump has previously acknowledged Musk will eventually exit, stating in April that Dodd will continue under federal secretaries once Musk steps aside. We have a lot of smart people, Trump said abroad Air Force One, saying they're going to work on it from the inside. But with Musk still at the center of Washington's most controversial cost-cutting effort, and with legal lines being blurred more than ever, the question is still there, begging for answer. Is Elon Musk serving the country, or is the country serving Elon Musk? Well, that is a question we're yet to get an answer to. We're still on the global reports. We see panic in Istanbul as 6.2 magnitude earthquake strikes, renewing fears of future catastrophe. A powerful 6.2 magnitude earthquake struck near Istanbul on Wednesday, triggering widespread panic and injuring more than 150 people. Turkish officials confirmed that while no deaths or major structural damage were reported, the quake renewed deep concerns about the city's vulnerability to a future, more devastating seismic event. As aftershocks continue, the critical questions remain: is Istanbul truly prepared for the big one experts have long warned about? Well, the earthquake struck offshore in the Sea of Marmara near Silivri, about 70 kilometers, that is 43 miles, west of Istanbul. It lasted 13 seconds and occurred at a shallow depth of 7 kilometers, according to the Disaster and Emergency Management Agency, AFAD. Authorities recorded at least 51 aftershocks, which is the strongest, measuring 5.9 magnitude. Now, though no lives were lost, 151 people were injured, and most from jumping out of windows or from buildings in panic. Istanbul Governor Davutoglu said all injuries occurred as a result of fear rather than structural collapse. Only one abandoned building in the Fake District reportedly fell. Now, Interior Minister Ali Yerli Kaya urged residents not to lower their guard. He says, let's stay alert for aftershocks, saying this on Twitter, on X. He noted that emergency services received over 6,000 calls, many of them seeking information. The quake was so strong that it interrupted live broadcasts. Viewers watched in real time as CNN Turk anchor Meltem Bozbegolio clutched her desk while the studio visibly shook. It was a stark reminder of the region's seismic volatility and the deep trauma that still lingers from past disasters. We know that in February 2023, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake devastated parts of southern Turkey and northern Syria, killing more than 50,000 people. That tragedy remains fresh in national memories and highlights how even well-populated cities are not immune to destruction. In a city of over 16 million people, how much longer can Istanbul rely on luck instead of stronger preparedness? Well, Istanbul sits dangerously close to the North Anatolian Fault, one of the most active and dangerous fault lines in the world. The Geological Society of London reports the fault lies just 20 kilometers, 12.4 miles south of the city, beneath the Sea of Marmara. Scientists have long warned that this fault is due for another major shift. Historically, this fault zone has produced catastrophic events, like in 1999 when a magnitude 7.6 magnitude quake in Izmit killed over 17,000 people and left 500,000 people homeless. Experts say the stress on the fault line has only built up since then, making another massive quake increasingly likely. Now, earthquakes occur when energy stored in the Earth's crust is suddenly released, generating seismic waves that violently shake the ground. A quake between magnitude 6 and 6.9 is considered strong and can cause significant damage depending on population density, construction quality, and depth. Now, coming to the conclusion of this report, despite Istanbul's economic and cultural importance, once the capital of both the Byzantine and Ottoman empires, concerns remain about outdated infrastructure and lax enforcement of building codes. The city has implemented modernization efforts, but critics argue progress is slow and inconsistent. Should Turkey be investing more aggressively in earthquake resilient infrastructure, or will it continue risking lives in one of the most active seismic zones on Earth? Well, until next time, this is where we'll be drawing the curtains on today's flash news to a close. Remember, we'll be bringing you recent happenings from the home front on Undaunted, coming up at 8 p.m. tonight. Until then, do have a pleasant day. Thank you for watching.